IQ with you all the time.
You do. You do.
I don't.
So we're not going to ask Ben his opinion here. The move. Who do you think is going to be able to take this one, Elliot?
Well, I think Super Frogs has had some surprises with us bringing in Chun-Li. Maybe that is an option for them. They could potentially run some cleave setups. We've seen Wealthy Man on the Outlaw Rogue. I don't know if that could come into play, but I feel like the move, they have the composition that can basically beat anything that Super Frogs throws at them. I think Super Frogs isn't going to go into a matchup again where they play the RLS, because that did not work out for them. They got easily 3-0'd by the move. It just seems like the Shadow Priest was better than the Affliction Warlock in that composition. Even though on paper it might not seem like it, the move just dominated them. So I mean, that was basically a long-winded way of me saying I think the move's going to win.
Most people probably agree with you. We're going to find out in a second if Twitch does as well. And yeah, the Twitch chat is definitely agreeing with you, which means you're probably right. 82% of you on the side of the move. I think that the highest percentage we've actually ever seen is 83%. So the move not quite taken that yet, not quite taken the title of the most voted by the people. But we'll have to see if that changes throughout the day. If they make it to the grand final, I honestly feel like if you are someone who's in Twitch chat voting every single series, it seems like a good pick here. This team is on absolute fire. And we got to talk about how they've been able to do it, Zico, because honestly, their comps on paper look awful. Like, they really do. You look at most of their comps and you go, this is probably bad.
You know what's really weird is that last season we were like, the move, they're just playing RPS. Why are they playing this? This isn't a meta composition. Like, that's their biggest weakness.
Wait,
is this
is that a Shadow Priest?
Yeah. What are they doing with the Shadow Priest?
So it was last night.
They're running the same thing and not winning every game.
Last night, and I think this is really important. Last night, had some people like in chat, like going through chat, just talking to people and everything, and basically saying like, where do you think like the mistake was? Oh, was this a bad comp pick? Was this blah 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 blah? And I kind of gave this answer that it's like, wait, you gotta actually think about who you're talking about here. It's so easy for us on the outside to criticize different decisions like comps, what you're locking in on the blind and things like that when we're looking at everything that's going on. But these are the best players in the world for a reason. And if they continue to lock in this comp, they know that the potential it has, and they know the skill ceiling. They know how good they really are in the class. And we're seeing different things like that with WizK.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think one of the things that really held them back in the last season was tanks. It was just like tanks were a lot more prevalent, and it was really good against the composition that they had.
Maybe Super Rejects. It could actually be a thing that comes into play.
Vexen Prot Warrior.
You can't down a tank in a 6-minute series.
I mean, Destra Warlocks are basically tanks, so I mean, wouldn't put it past them.
They're tanks with the beefiest of bolts, and we may be seeing that right now coming out from Chanimal. We're going to have to see when we actually do open those gates what Chanimal has opted into playing. The move versus Super Frogs. Right now, who is going to take the first game in this upper bracket series? Who's going to get knocked down to the lower bracket?
We were talking about him at the beginning of the day, and that was Chun-Li. We know him for his Windwalker play, but here instead he's looking to slay on his warrior. Let's see if he can bring the pain. I think the WLS, if Chanimal is playing Affliction, is actually a decent setup into this. It's very difficult as a Shadow Priest to get Vampiric Touch cast off, as all three members can interrupt you, Grounding Totem, there's stuns, and there's just a warrior in your face, so it's probably not going to be a great time as a Shadow Priest. I like this composition for Super Frogs.
Yeah, it definitely could work out. WizK, I think he's up for the challenge. We'll have to see. Positioning himself in the middle of the map right now, looking for those VT casts, looking for those dots. Peekaboo on the Assassination Row is going to be super effective against this Resto Shaman. Full blind out onto Cubsy, looking like not going to get sap. Peekaboo was looking for the sap, but wasn't able to find it. Cubsy gates away.
All right, and it looks like Chanimal tried to use a Succubus at some point during this game, but maybe Cubsy preemptively, or maybe Absurd preemptively shapeshifted. We see lots of damage towards Chun-Li. A Trinket and Die by the Sword has been forced out in exchange for Peekaboo's Vendetta, which is a great start for Peekaboo. Now he's making a swap to Cubsy with a Shadow Step kick, interrupting that heal. Cubsy dropping down the healing Tide Totem. Absturge making an offensive play as WizK, Peekaboo, and Absturge close in on the Super Frogs.
Yeah, Chun-Li's going to be pushing in, looking for damage here, reconnecting over onto WizK, interrupting him right now, but I think Chun-Li will be that pressure point once again. I think if Absturge can get off those offensive purges and they can get that Vendetta, it's not going to have the Die by the Sword available. Kidney Shot now onto Cubsy. Peekaboo spreading out his pressure all over the place, looking to rot down all three members of Super Frogs. Cubsy gets away, so Peekaboo's going to be turning his attention once again to Chanimals and Chun-Li.
All right, Chun-Li going to be the primary target. Stormbolt, though, onto WizK. trying to get that dispersion force, but not ultimately finding it. We see a preemptive disarm on the Peekaboo, trying to prevent a kidney shot. Cubsy, in the meantime, was sitting through a silence, so his whole team is starting to fall behind. Nice kidney shot there on the sharpened blade from Peekaboo, trying to slow down the pressure towards WizK. WizK going for a Master Spell and actually soaking up some unstable afflictions and taking quite a bit of damage as a result. Chun-Li trying to capitalize on that, maybe execute out a kill, but Absterge denies it with an Earthen Shield Totem. WizK now restabilizes. Mana completely in favor of Cubsy. Really, right now, the only thing that's going badly for Super Frog is that Chun-Li doesn't have a trinket, so he can't get out of his stun. He does not have Dab of the Sword to reduce damage, so this could be the moment where he ultimately goes down. Void Form activated. Triple fear from Chun-Li. What does he have left to keep himself going? Cubsy needs to try and get out a healing wave. Absterge actually jumped in to try and wind shear the heal. Cubsy fake casted it. That fake cast, I think, might be the only reason that Chun-Li is alive right now.
Yeah, Peekaboo held onto his Vendetta as well. WizK getting low though, doesn't want to out of the thing. And he didn't use it as first or the Void Shift at Spirit Link as well. Super Frog, that wasn't looking that great for them.
That was a 2-arm execute. That was...
No, he was low for a long time. When we go look at the replay, he had a lot of time to react to that situation. Definitely more than me.
I think it's one of those things where you've just been untouchable for so long. You go for that greedy play, and then ultimately you get punished there. And this was looking like one of those games where the move. This is the first game that we've seen them lose this season outside of the grand finals against Method. This is the first map that we have seen them drop. So ultimately, Super Frogs, they went to the drawing board. They figured out some compositions that were going to work, and they were going toe-to-toe with pressure. I mean, there was pressure on both sides.
Yeah, there definitely was, but I feel like the move had set themselves up a win.
I agree.
Chun-Li didn't have anything to really deal with it. They just needed one more offensive push. They had so much to survive. I think that was a bit of a throwaway there, and I can't help but feel like going into the next game, Super Frogs hasn't found a comp that's a straight-up counter. Like, I think the move still has a shot.
This is the first team in the summer season that has taken a game off of Absterge outside of Method Orange. The first time. This is their 4th loss total for the whole season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think the main thing is there, if you get off that shift, if you just get off that Void Shift, they probably win in 10 seconds. Like, it looked like they were just going to be able to take Chun-Li down there, Zico.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very back-and-forth game, but I think that Chun-Li did a really, really good job trying to apply pressure to WizK and staying in, trusting his healer. So I think he did a great job, and this was really one of the highlights. That fear right there allows Cubsy to just get all of those heals off, because Absterge was going in right there to try to interrupt Cubsy. And I mean, this was so nice. Chun-Li managing to catch a few heals off of that and force Absterge's trinket. And then here he manages to kick up WizK, actually WizK faking there, and then Chun-Li managing to get that big sharpened blade up, and then here into execute range, big crit as well. And I mean, WizK had everything available there. Disperse, they still had the Spirit Link Totem, Void Shift, they had a lot of cooldowns left, but it was looking like a very even game, because I mean, Cubsy also had his cooldown still, he still had his Spirit Link and his trinket, so the game was still in a fairly even spot there. And I do like the comp coming out of Super Frogs. You have the Warrior to counter the SP, and then you have the Shaman to give you more interrupts, and then as well as that Warlock with those extra interrupts.
I don't think I really appreciated how big that hit was until we saw the replay there. That was absolutely insane. Deleted about a quarter of his health in one hit. Absolutely bonkers there. But we got to give it up for Chun-Li. We talk about how this is one of the first times that we've actually seen the move drop games. This is also one of the first games that we've seen Chun-Li, and now he is playing on the Warrior. And I feel like sometimes we forget, most Warriors, when you see a Shadow Priest, it's a field day. Remember when we were queuing with Bombadil? All I had to do was kick feed T's and we won. It was a pretty easy thing, and it looked like paper to you as a Warrior. We forget that with WizK, because WizK, for some reason, looks like a titanium snack every time. It looks absolutely invincible, even to classes that usually do have the upper edge. But there, we see Chun-Li make WizK look like just about any other Shadow Priest, and it's paper that a Warrior can tear right through. I think it's awesome to see Chun-Li multi-classing, and I hope we get to see more of him, Supatis.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Although, as Zico pointed out, it was still an even fight for the most part. I think it might have been an unfortunate situation where Chun-Li got a big enough hit that took Earthshield off right on the next global cooldown for Execute, and Abster couldn't reapply Earthshield.
Yeah.
So it didn't have the damage reduction from Earthshield, and it just amplified the amount of damage from it. It was literally the perfect amount of damage to execute him. At the same time, maybe Chun-Li is playing the Execute extra 5%. I don't.
Yeah.
He might be, which is decent for Shadow Priest because you don't need the mobility, right? You don't need the range to execute. Shadow Priest isn't going to move, so you get extra 5% health. You can do it at 25%. If Earthshield fell off at that second, you got a little bit lucky with it critting. That's the opening that they needed, and they snuck into it.
Yeah, basically, for anyone who doesn't play Warrior, there's a talent that often people will spec into that essentially allows your execute to have a range. It kind of turns it into a charge. It's a gap closer. You're able to get out those executes. But here, you don't need it because the Shadow Priest is going to be a little bit less mobile. They have to actually stand in place to get off those casts, and that's going to allow Chun-Li to do a little bit of extra damage. So very well played by Chun-Li. A wise talent choice as well. He knows who he wants to execute. It's pretty clear here that you're not trying to move around with those executes. You just want to stay on that caster. But this was just such a good opening game. A very good opening game to watch. And all of a sudden, 82% of people in Twitch chat said, we think the move's going to win. The move not dropping games. And now going into this one, I could see this being a lot more back and forth. The move definitely not out of this yet. The move could come back right now and get 3 wins in a row. Or we could see Super Frogs come out and get some really big wins if the games were as close as that one, Ben.
Well, definitely. I mean, that is about as close as you can get. Like Zico said, both teams still had cooldowns available. Maybe a little bit lucky with the execute crit there, but Super Frogs had pressure from start to finish. They did a good job. The move still has openings, though. And like I said, Chun-Li can be a pressure point if they catch him in battle stance with a kidney shot and Vendetta. That's when you see the trinket and you see dive of the sword. You see basically everything forced out immediately, but it's so difficult for WizK in this matchup against the Affliction Warlock, against the Resto Shaman, against the Arms Warrior. There's so many ways to interrupt you and just slow down your damage.
Yeah, I think that is the real thing is ultimately you could criticize WizK for not going into all those defensive cooldowns that he had. But that was, we talk about big bolts that we've seen today, beefy bolts. That was a thick execute. That was a big hit there. It was thick with 8 C's. Absolutely nutty stuff that comes out there. And if you're WizK, he's someone that has just been able to perfectly use those defensive cooldowns, maybe not expecting that damage. We don't expect him to be caught off guard here again. Will Chun-Li be able to bring the pressure and allow Super Frogs to go up 2-0, or will the move even the scale?
I'm going to say that was a bit of just a lucky kill for the Super Frogs, and they're going to need to step up their game here because the pressure was almost entirely in favor of the move. I mean, Chun-Li was at 10% for most of this game, so let's see if Super Frogs can keep up the momentum that they've got from that first game win.
Yeah, Chun-Li's charging in, found his target right away. There's a Stormbolt. WizK trinkets out, so already opting to use that trinket. We see this from WizK quite often. He likes to get aggressive, doesn't want to sit back, let his dots not go up, so there we go. There's the VTs, there's the Mass Dispels, and some of the UAs coming in, but you can see Peekaboo's getting controlled quite nicely there by Chanimals using that Succubus. There's a sap over on the Cubsy as well. As Peekaboo went for that blind, the Cubsy really didn't have to use much.
I mean, Chanimal just shut Peekaboo down. He basically just seduced Peekaboo with the Succubus, held him in place, denied any sort of setup and follow-up crowd control. It was great, nice demon play from Chanimal there. Chun-Li still the primary target. As I said in the first game, it looked almost so fragile in the first game, so I'm curious to see if Peekaboo and WizK can keep up that pressure on Chun-Li. Peekaboo shadow stepping up to Chanimal, looking to spread some of his pressure out. Cubsy trying to dispel off the Vampiric Touches. Well-timed pummel to deny the reapplication from Chun-Li. Sharpened Blade battle stance. Let's see if Peekaboo tries to punish this battle stance from Chun-Li. He is getting feared away. Abster just moving up a little bit curiously. Chun-Li's actually just going to switch his attention to him, try and spread out as much damage as possible. Mana is in favor of Cubsy, and I believe the Warrior Warlock should be doing a bit more sustained damage than the Shadow Priest just because there's so many interrupts for the Shadow Priest. WizK jumping into Void form. Vendetta available. Chun-Li needs to be careful. They're both right on top of him. Cubsy on the silence. There could be a kidney shot. Chun-Li uses Intimidating Shot right before it. Kidney shot lands. Trinket, Naba sword. A trinket overlap from the side of Super Frogs. That's going to be a big opening moving forward for the move.
Yeah, this is super scary for Super Frogs right now. Cubsy getting low as well. Chun-Li still rotting down. Earthen Shield Totem gets committed. Cubsy gets interrupted though. Might have to actually drop out the Spirit Link Totem. That would be a disaster. Nice fear coming in from WizK, keeping up his pressure quite nicely. Chanimals needs to make something happen, but you can see Abster's position so far away. Not going to be in any crowd control just yet, but a nice spell lock comes in, allowing the Super Frogs to start getting some momentum onto WizK.
I mean, mana is in favor of Cubsy, which is a significant advantage. Abster's trying to get ahead of the dots that Chanimal is dishing out with that Dispel, but taking quite a big hit as you Dispel Unstable Affliction. It does damage to you and silences you, so it's a pretty risky decision as a healer. Abster's in a good position to get away with it. We see a swap onto Cubsy from Peekaboo. WizK trying to support in that ever so deadly Void from a silence out of the stun with that cool that overlap earlier with the double trinket. Could be costly. Cubsy is trying to be greedy and hold on to it. We see Chun-Li gating, but Peekaboo in hot pursuit, shadow stepping, both members dangerously low. WizK's Void form though just ran out. They might not have enough. They might not have enough. There's the Spearling Totem available, but a full blind with no trinket, and that trinket overlap earlier I think is ultimately going to cost the Super Frogs the game. Peekaboo follows it up with the sap. Of course he does. It's Peekaboo. There's the cheap shot holding Chun-Li in place. Precision kill coming out here with a Psychic Scream to chain it all together. The move, strike back.
All right, well, I had promised a bunch of viewers that we would talk about it. Now seems like the perfect time. People have been asking it on Twitter. People have been asking it in chat. Peekaboo versus Waz. I want to have the discussion for just a little bit. I mean, Peekaboo just did Peekaboo things there. People keep saying who's the best rogue in the world. Let's just have the discussion for a little bit. Let's just indulge everybody who's been asking the conversation. Zico, what's your opinion? Peekaboo versus Waz. How do these two stack up?
Waz is my son. I'm not going to bet against him. It's Waz, obviously.
So let's just compare them. We don't have to say one's better. Peekaboo versus Waz, though, a little bit. Okay, Super Tease. Peekaboo versus Waz, head-to-head right now. What are the two strengths of these guys? What are we really seeing out of two of the best rogues in the world?
I feel like Waz is just putting in more time and more practice lately, and as a result, he's got all three specializations of Rogue. We haven't seen Peekaboo perform on outside of Assassination and Subtlety, really, so I would say Waz is more well-rounded. He's got more time put into it this year than Peekaboo, so I'd definitely give it to Waz.
Now with Peekaboo, though, set up on this move team, how they're looking right now, they get to land. Then, Rookie, what do you think the skill ceiling really is for Peekaboo? What do you think he's going to be able to do in this tournament season?
Well, it's been back and forth between these two for a very long time. They're both younger players in the scene, both specializing on that row. They both played RMP back in the day, so you always want to wonder who's better, Waz or Peekaboo. But like you guys said, a lot of it comes down to, I think Waz has just put in so much effort over these last 2 years that he may have pulled ahead just a little bit, but Peekaboo obviously still super dominant. He's on one of the best teams in North America, making it look easy. And if it comes down to a showdown between those two teams, I cannot wait.
All right, well, we're listening to what you guys say on Twitter. You can keep asking us questions, and we will try to answer them to the best of our ability, but we need to look at what Peekaboo was able to do in the arena in this second game.
Yeah, and I mean, this was such a crucial moment here. Silence into full hex from Cubsy is going to be overlap trinket as well there for Chun-Li and Cubsy. And this is honestly the game-winning moment already. So early in this matchup, if you are Super Frogs, your win condition is to shut down WizK. If you take a look here already at the mana between the two healers, you can kind of see that Cubsy is starting to pull a little bit ahead, and the game just started. And that is because the Warlock will provide more damage, and they will have more lockdown in addition to that Mortal Strike effect, of course, as well onto WizK. Now, with that said, the team that has to play to win is definitely going to be the move, and this is such a nice setup here from Absterge and WizK. You can take a look at Cubsy having really, really bad positioning there, honestly, and then you can see Absterge having super good positioning there. He can still reach WizK here and get those heals out, and he can still go for that hex here as well. So a lot of opportunity here on the side of the move, and we can go ahead and roll that clip and see exactly what happens. Full silence, and then Cubsy's jumping out to try to reach his warrior with some heals. Beautifully timed hex from Absterge is going to secure Cubsy's trinket, but then Chun-Li has to overlap his own trinket plus the die by the sword here. And then at this point in time, you have such a massive win condition. You can kidney shot into full silence, into full blind, into full sap. That is the longest CC chain that you can ever hope for if you are the move, and you can guarantee that you will take down a warrior who has no trinket as well as no die by the sword. And that's what we're gonna see right here. Cubsy, of course, trinketless. Chun-Li is doing the best that he can here to try to survive the situation. Peekaboo taking his time, landing that sap, and then he's going to reach Chun-Li once again, and then WizK is going to be following up that sap with a short fear. Look at Chanimal as well, though, doing a great job there, shutting down Absterge on that hex attempt, but it's too little too late. it. And unfortunately, when you're that far behind and the Warrior's already low when the blind comes in, you can't do anything. You just lost the game the moment you overlap those trinkets, and the moment Absturge did that MVP hex.
Now we're going to see the same compositions again and headed into this game. What do you expect to see? This is where we find one of the teams getting on match point, Supatis.
Oh, we don't need to guess. We can see the Warrior, Warlock, Shaman for the side of Super Frogs, and the RPS, so the Shadow Priest, Rogue Wrestler, Shaman for the side of the move. And as Zico said, the move have to play to win, which means they do setups and crowd control and burst damage, whereas the side of the Super Frogs are focused on shutdown and raw sustain damage. That game, I would say, as Zico also pointed out, that Absturge just had better positioning. He was always far away. He could punish dispels with unstable afflictions all the time. He never really got caught out, and with his good position, he capitalized and landed a full hex that snagged them the double trinket, the overlap. Maybe you could argue if Cubsy even needed to trinket it in that position with Dive of the Sword already activated, but regardless, that is what ended up being the result. And then later on, they were able to capitalize on it and punish a Peekaboo's blind into Sap. So it was a great setup there from the move. If they can keep doing that, it's not looking too good for the Super Frogs.
I do want to say, though, Super Frogs, obviously they're able to come out here on the blind with a very, very chunky death, very, very chunky amount of damage off of Chun-Li's back to take down Wiz K in that first game. Zico, how is that something that they repeat? We obviously noted the fact that execute was just about as big as it can get, but how do they replicate a win?
They just need to play the long game, honestly. They just need to focus on surviving. They're putting out good pressure onto Wiz K. They need to somehow try to keep doing that, but Chun-Li needs to pick his moments a little bit better, because if Chun-Li drops too low, sometimes it could be good to just leap out of there, let Cubsy connect a heal or two, and then get back in onto his target. I think if they do that, they can kind of drag on the game to a point where they can win later on.
All tied up, but that changes on Ruins of Lordaeron. The team that wins this finds themselves on match point in the upper portion of the bracket.
Yep, the move is looking to set up that damage onto Chun-Li once again. Chun-Li is going to be sitting on Wiz K, but Wiz K does something very intelligent. He doesn't really charge in to get the damage onto Cubsy and get the damage onto Chanimals. He just tries to butter up Chun-Li, so Peekaboo can get this crowd control. There's the full blind. Now Chun-Li could be in some trouble, but a nice double stun coming in from Chanimals. Peekaboo lands the full sap onto Cubsy, and this is where the move can start to find some pressure. Absturge in a position to land the DR hex, and out of that hex, there's going to be a fear into a silence, but a nice charge coming in from Chun-Li, and a nice fear breaks up that CC chain. Finally, Cubsy can get some heals, and as I say that, Wiz K commits his silence. Chun-Li's going to rot down a little bit lower.
Yep, Chun-Li is still the primary target here as Cubsy goes into a kidney shot, pre-astral shift that will allow him to survive this stun, but it means Peekaboo can use Vendetta later on. Peekaboo getting punished for that aggressive trinket earlier on to secure a sap, caught into a Stormbolt and had to trade out his entire defensive arsenal. That was a great punish from Chun-Li onto Peekaboo, realizing they overextended onto his healer and switching to him. Wiz K now the target again, trying to shut down those Vampiric Touches that we see a Wind Shear secured. Vampiric Touches being casted, another swap from Peekaboo. This is the Vendetta attempt. Cubsy immediately trinketing, realizing that pre-astral shift earlier is now an opening to die here, denies it with the trinket.
Yeah, this is a key moment though. Peekaboo will have his blind coming up sometime, and Cubsy won't have a trinket for it. They can force anything from Chun-Li before that time. They can definitely close out the game with that blind zap combo like we saw in the last one. Peekaboo running over, continuing the damage onto Cubsy with a full kidney shot. Wiz K, does he have any damage? Looking like he's going to be rotting everyone down. Chun-Li still getting low. Cubsy really struggling in this moment. Might actually have to drop out his Killing Totem, but he gets kicked immediately. Cubsy uses his Hellstone to keep himself alive. That's Ascendance as well, so he should be able to top off his team, but after that, man, it's going to be scary.
Yeah, it was a very scary moment. Another swap to Peekaboo. They got the trinket earlier aggressively, and then and the defensive cooldowns later on, so Peekaboo isn't going to overextend. He's going to retreat back and attack Chanimal next to Absturge. Now the momentum is swinging in favor of Super Frogs as Chanimal is just letting the damage go everywhere, down to 70% on all three members. Wiz K and Void Form trying to capitalize with this. Cubsy and Chun-Li very far apart, which means Peekaboo, it'll be obvious if he wants to make a swap to Cubsy if Chun-Li can position further away. A preemptive disarm and Peekaboo trying to deny the kidney shot. We see Sharpened Blade used there, but not too much. There's the blind attempt. This is what Peekaboo has been waiting for. A preemptive dive by the sword from Chun-Li before the stun lock, before the sap was even landed. That dive by the sword might have been just a couple seconds too early. If they can keep the crowd control chain going, Absturge snags in a hex. Wiz K is pushing forward. They need to keep this chain going on Cubsy. They need the Psychic Scream, but Wiz K is snared up by the hamstring of Chun-Li. He can't catch up. Cubsy with great kiting to avoid avoid that, but they go for the silence. I don't think they're going to find the scream, though. The Die by the Sword that was used preemptively, though, could be punished. Nice spell reflect.
Vendetta!
Enough. Vendetta pops. Psychic Scream secured. The commanding shout buys Chun-Li a couple more seconds. Chun-Li's hanging on. All they have to do is survive this. They've got Spearling Totem. I'm surprised that they don't just trade it out. Chun-Li's just going to duck into the Earthen Shield Totem, soak up some of the damage, and then turn the heat up. Now it's Super Frog's turn to attack.
Yeah, WizK goes into the dispersion. Doesn't want to go down without using that once again. Now Cubsy into the kidney shot. He has the trinket available. Peekaboo doesn't have the damage to force it out, though, so Cubsy should be fine. Nice interrupt coming in from Peekaboo once again as he reconnects to his target. Cubsy dispels himself, realizing there's no interrupts. He wants all of those Shadow Priest dots to be off. I think that was a very intelligent play. Now Cubsy's going to be able to easily top himself off and just be able to line of sight WizK. WizK can't get those dots up. It's not going to be that scary. Same can't be said for Peekaboo, though, who's caught into the full Stormbolt. Big pressure coming out, but he used the evasion preemptively, so he's going to be okay after that Stormbolt fades.
All right, Vendetta coming off cooldown shortly. Chun-Li with no defensive cooldowns. Chun-Li needs to sit in defensive stance and be ready for that attack. We see a silence on Cubsy and maybe some damage on Chanimal. He could be an exposed target as well as Peekaboo makes another swap. Critical swap. Chanimal in trouble. Cubsy trying to pick him back up. WizK right on top of Cubsy for a Psychic Scream as well, I would believe. Shortly, Absterge is moving on top of Cubsy as the move. Dogpile onto the healer to try and crowd control him. Everyone is on top of Cubsy. This is going to get stressful for him as his team is dipping low. He tries to jump away from that situation. Chun-Li now makes a swap to Absterge to punish this aggressive push. Absterge's mana is on the clock. He's almost completely tapped. If the move can't find an opportunity soon, they're going to be going down.
Yeah, WizK is going to be in a little trouble, but everyone from Super Frogs is rotting down. There's the trinket from Cubsy. Kidney shot on that immediately as Peekaboo looks to want to reconnect over onto Chanimals. There's a full hex. Very nicely done by Absterge. Chanimals in a lot of trouble. No unending resolve. Uses his Hellstone and tops himself off. It's a good thing he had that available. Now Cubsy into the sap. But no more crowd control. There's the silence. And still in crowd control, Chun-Li getting low as well as Vendetta is committed by Peekaboo. The Moo has pressure all over the place.
Yeah, but I mean, Cubsy has Ascendance. He could just press that and top his whole team. It's almost a throwaway, I think, at this point, not to do it. Absterge is completely tapped on mana. Chanimals is almost about to go down. They have to kill Chanimal in this next couple of seconds. A full hex from Absterge is going to punish the team of Super Frogs and find the kill. They were maybe a minute away from victory. Look at Absterge's mana. It's nothing. It's the tiniest amount ever. They just needed another minute to stay in this fight, but Cubsy, I think, was too greedy with all the cooldowns. I mean, just look below his health bar. He had basically everything available. And then ultimately, the move are going to capitalize and find an opening for a kill.
Going to be looking like a well-oiled machine on match point. If they win one more map, they're going straight to the grand final. Last week, they were able to take down that grand final as well. If they do this, I mean, it's pretty much looking like they're going to be able to make it all the way to BlizzCon. I mean, we haven't really seen a performance this impressive in a while. They're looking really strong for the NA. I think it's pretty clear that they're going to be making it to the LAN at this point, at the very least, for the end of this season. But Zico, do you agree with Super T's there with what actually went down in this game?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I agree with Super T's completely. They should have just used that Ascendance when they had that window of healing, and they could have topped up Chanimals and maybe saved that Healthstone for this last play. But I think that more than anything else, we gotta commend the move here. They did such a phenomenal job creating opportunities for themselves when it looked like actually this was their game to lose. And one of those big plays was Peekaboo getting that blind onto Cubsy, forcing his trinket, and then kidney shot into that full hex, into that sap, into that silence, forcing out all of those defensives from Chanimals, and then they managed to get another kidney shot into hex. And I gotta say, Absterge in this series has been so good, landing hex after hex after hex on Cubsy and just dominating him.
I have said it a few times on this desk. Absterge has been insane for such a long time. I remember when I first started casting with you guys back when we were casting in New York and when we were casting in Kiev, and looking at Absterge and just being like, when is Absterge gonna have his year? It looks like it really could be this one. And then Peekaboo's on the map just soloing people. WizK is doing damage that has never existed inside of the World of Warcraft. This team is looking really good, and like you said, Zico, together they are making opportunities.
Yeah, and this right here is one of those opportunities, because you see Cubsy has triggered out of the blind. Look at Absterge dropping that grounding totem into that full hex right there, and that is essentially what secures the kill there. It's just such good teamwork between that rogue and that shaman, and then always WizK with the big damage, making sure that they have the damage to finish when those opportunities arise.
Now, in your mind right now, Zico, what does Super Frogs change? Because Super Frogs, I feel like they've been doing a pretty good job. In this game, Super T's basically saying, look, if they manage to stay alive a little bit longer, if the healing is actually just there, if maybe that Ascendance gets traded out, maybe not being so greedy, it looks like they have that mana to actually get them into the late game, and Super Frogs find a win there. So that's one game where the Super Frogs potentially find a win. Obviously, in the first game, they have that huge crit. They get the win. In the second game, there were moments where it looked like they could get a win as well. So do they keep banging their head against the wall with this composition and just be a few small percentages away from getting that win? Do they clean up the strategy, start getting wins, or do they switch their composition?
I think they got to stick with this composition. This seems like by far the best thing that they can run, but they're just getting outplayed right now. They need to make sure that Abstitch cannot land these hexes, because they are really what creates this opportunity. And I think Cubsy as well, earlier in this game, had to trinket that kidney shot with Vendetta on him, and then he had to set a full blind sap. Things like that really puts you behind, because Chanimals has to use his cooldowns there, and then he won't have them later in the game. So they just need to clean up their play, and they're playing a little bit too aggressive. They need to focus a bit more on the defense, because they are winning very, very hard when it comes to mana.
It's so crazy. The thing with the move is, I feel like more times than not, when we actually discuss their matches, it's never them out-comping someone. That's not going to happen with a Shadow Priest and a Rogue. Let's be honest. For the most part, that's not going to happen. They're not out-comping people. They are straight up outplaying people, and it feels really good to be jumping into the map, and just there's no question about it. 90% of the time when they're winning, Ben, it's because they are just outplaying people.
Well, that's what happens when you play a composition for so long. CC setups like this, like we see in jungle, like we see in RMP, where you're bursting someone down, you're getting lots of crowd control. You build up that synergy over time. You start thinking about matchups that you're losing and how you can convert them to wins. And now that they've done that for so long, it's really paying off for them in Season 2.
It's one of the things that I love about WoW, too. It's like the mentality that certain teams have, like the move, that's like, yeah, no, this is our comp. We're the best at it in the world. Peekaboo right now, sure, there's Waz, but that's the back and forth. Those are the two rogues that tend to be in the conversation for the best rogues in the world. So Peekaboo finds that mastery there, and he finds that synergy with WizK. WizK isn't even a Shadow Priest, he's a Void Lord. Absolutely nuts, knows which situations he's going to come out on top. And Absurge, we've seen him on this Shaman. Obviously, the current state of the game, you do need to, at times, find those different healing specializations, but Absurge has looked really good. And Jelly Beans, he's the best hunter in the world, one of the best hunters in the world. He's in that conversation all of the time, and they just make it work. They find those moments to show off that they are completely skill capped. Will they be able to do it again? It's not about the comp. It's about getting outplayed here. Tolvaron Arena, the move, one game away from making it to another grand final.
This map focuses heavily on defensive playstyle, which is a great selection by the Super Frogs. The WLS can have a lot of space to kite away and avoid damage. It'll be difficult for the Shadow Priest to keep up, and as well as the Assassination Rogue. So I'm very curious to see if Super Frogs can keep up their momentum.
Well, I think just the number one thing is it's going to be much more difficult for Absurge to push in and get those Hex out of the kidney shot, just because of how much distance there is. And like Zico was saying, that's really where they got most of their moments of pressure from. Peekaboo going to be moving in, lands the sap over onto Chun-Li, eroding up Chanimals. Looks like Chun-Li is going to be the target of choice very early on. Peekaboo likes to get his bleeds up on Chun-Li, and then he can go over, put the kidney shot on the Cubsy, and that's what they can start finding some damage.
Looks like Peekaboo actually wants to go after Chanimal a little bit this game. Chanimal kiting him quite effectively with that Portal and Infernal Stun. Peekaboo managed to sneak in a Hex, though, right at the last second of that blind. Now a bunch of damage flying towards Chanimal. He trinkets out, trying to duck out of line of sight of WizK. Another ward activated as well. He can gate. He's going to gate across the map. Cubsy as well during that silence. It's good teamwork between Chanimal and Cubsy. Chanimal is probably one of the most difficult Warlocks to just kill in this game, period. Peekaboo now realizing that, switching to Chun-Li instead. A bit more stationary target on that Warrior. Now Peekaboo is getting storm bolted away, though, as Chun-Li is trying to peel for himself a disarm out of the stun, buying more time for Cubsy to restabilize. Peekaboo, WizK, and Absurge, though, they are not afraid of the Super Frogs. They're just constantly pushing towards Cubsy.
Yeah, they need to find that pressure. They need to find that crowd control if they want to get out a win. Like we said, Super Frogs should have the damage advantage in this matchup, potentially. Peekaboo is going to be charging in, looking for the kidney shot onto Cubsy as Chun-Li rots down lower and lower. This is what's so scary. Look at Chun-Li having such a difficult time landing on a WizK, finally able to find some damage, but Peekaboo is going to be committing a lot over on Cubsy here. Stormbolt onto Absurge. See, Chun-Li wants to get some damage rolling all over the place, and they actually force out Absurge's trinket, which is huge.
Yeah, definitely. Now with an intimidating shot later on, maybe they can set up for a burst kill on WizK or Peekaboo. Chun-Li still taking taking a ton of damage as WizK is basically 1v1ing Chun-Li and winning heavily in this 1v1. Peekaboo's trying to go after Cubsy, harassing both targets at low HP. Of course, he can only have Earth Shield on one, which is making this so difficult for Cubsy to predict who he needs Earth Shield on. Right now, it needs to be Chun-Li, and I believe Earthen Shield Totem was preempted from Absterge to allow WizK to stay aggressive. Cubsy's trying to get ahead of the dots by dispelling them. Peekaboo looks like he's really eager to make a swap or potentially a blind very soon. Chun-Li just taking so much damage that he has to die by the sword, even with no crowd control onto the healer. Peekaboo just immediately swapping onto Cubsy, now popping that Vendetta immediately. Cubsy has the cooldowns to easily survive this, but he uses Earthen Shield Totem on himself, and Chun-Li is now exposed. Chun-Li tries to retreat back into the totem and be protected. Absterge is right on top of both members, maybe looking for a cheeky Hex here shortly, but this is looking so difficult for Cubsy to handle.
He gets interrupted there by Absterge into a silence. Chun-Li still rotting down low. Now there's a full blind. If Cubsy trinkets out, this is exactly what Peekaboo wants. Now Cubsy is susceptible to the full kidney shot with the Vendetta. Garot's going to go onto Cubsy. Garot's going to go onto Chun-Li. Peekaboo spreading his damage all over the place. Chun-Li doing what he can with the disarm over onto Peekaboo. Peekaboo reconnects over to Cubsy. Cubsy really doesn't have too much. No trinket. The only thing that will keep him alive is that Spirit Link Totem, but this is looking so scary for Super Frogs.
Yeah, I mean, Cubsy is just constantly below 50% HP with no cooldowns. Chun-Li as well with no cooldowns. WizK is just dominating this 1v1 against Chun-Li throughout this game, holding him at almost in Shadow Word death range. Chanimal looking for a succubus play here. I believe it may have gotten Windshield and shut down though by Absterge. Chun-Li trying to set up a swap, but he's dipping low. Cubsy manages to sneak the Spirit Link Totem in right before that silence, but Chun-Li is still just taking so much damage. Chanimal now rotting down as both teams hit the 50% HP mark. Shamans are running low on mana. Chun-Li trying to lead the charge here with the Windshield on WizK. They don't have the burst damage followed up. Absterge has Ascendance though. That's basically a reset for his team. A couple healing waves. His whole team's going to go back to full. Cubsy does not have that luxury. Chanimal instead needs to kite away. Chun-Li, I can imagine, needs to evacuate with a heroic leap here shortly. The next kidney shot could be devastating. That Vendetta is ready and waiting, and Cubsy does not have a trinket for it.
Yeah, this is the moment. Peekaboo's going to be looking for that kidney shot on someone to connect that Vendetta, like you said. Chun-Li doesn't have anything for it. Cubsy trying to run away, but WizK able to get a lot of damage off on him. Everyone hovering around 50% HP. WizK getting on a little bit of pressure. There's a kidney shot over onto Chanimals right now. Looks like Vendetta's going to be committed onto him. Silence onto Cubsy. Chanimals ports away on top of his gateway, so he can't get away, but it's rotting down. WizK might be able to take him down. Hellstone's going to be committed as well by Chanimal, so he doesn't really have anything left. In the meantime, Chun-Li's rotting down, and Peekaboo's chasing down Cubsy, who's still just trying to create space, looking like he wants to get back to Chanimal's gateway.
All right, Chun-Li's actually making a swap to Absterge, but now he gets rooted behind the pillar. Cubsy, in the meantime, getting swapped by Peekaboo. Peekaboo just destroying Cubsy in the one-on-one behind the pillar.
Goodness.
The Move are going to advance to the finals, only dropping one game against the Super Frogs.
If Peekaboo didn't solo, then it was just going to be WizK who soloed